Hello guys, welcome to Visordown. My name is Alex and welcome to Antibes in France, south of France, Côte d'Azur, to match the beautiful blue of the Suzuki GSX-8S, which is brand new for 2023. We've been riding it around today, around 200 kilometers. It's been great fun, as always, but they always seem to pick great roads for launches. It's fantastic. Anyway, cut to a few shots of me trying to look cool on a bike, and then we'll talk about it and see what I think about it. So we had about 200 kilometers there or thereabouts riding the brand new Suzuki GSX-8S, which I find always very difficult to say because you need to pronounce every single letter. But it's a fantastic bike and it's beautifully made. It's so easy to ride, it's accessible. It's a £7,999 bike and it's going to be arriving in dealerships towards the end of April, maybe early May. So you can get your hands on one of these pretty soon. And as I say, it's fantastic. The highlight for me is the engine. It's a new parallel twin. And if you remember from the V-Strom 800DE launch that I had in Sardinia, it's the same parallel twin that's found on that bike. This one is then transferred into the naked Streetfighter style. And as you can see, it's a beautifully well-made bike, as I say. In terms of power figures, you've got around about 82 brake horsepower and around about 78 Newton meters of torque. And it gets put down so nicely. In terms of the 6 gears with the quick shifter that you've got, each single gear has loads of torque to pull you away. It does sort of peter out towards the top end. I found if you're really pushing the gears, especially 4th, 5th and 6th, it does sort of hang loose a little bit. It doesn't have as much grunt towards the end. But I say that in the nicest possible way because it doesn't hold back at all. You can really push these bikes. And today on the 200 kilometer ride that we had, it was around some mountainous twisty roads, the Route Napoleon, which is absolutely fantastic. And just in general, this thing will eat up anything that you throw at it, especially the town roads where we started. The engine is also special because it's got a 270-degree crank, so it sounds lovely. It's got a nice firing order to it, and Suzuki are talking all about the engine. If you want to find out more about the engine itself, you can read my review online. But if you jump on this bike, it's so easy to use. The clutch has got slip and assist, so it's nice and friendly, especially in sort of town and closed environments where you need to be very nippy and light with the clutch. It does that easily. Then you throw it onto the open road and it just goes for it. Weight transfer is 202 kilograms, curb weight or thereabouts. You chuck someone like me on it who's 6'3" and it does weigh a little bit more, but this thing just loves getting thrown into corners. I feel like the harder you ride this, the more you get out of it as well. So especially on the twistier roads, when we started really pushing and as everyone got more and more comfortable with the bike as the day went on, you could see that everyone was getting more confident to push it into corners and really try and lean the bike over and go for it. All I can say is there was no chicken strips in sight by the end of the day. I did just briefly mention as well my height. It's an 810mm seat, so for someone as short as Toad, they're going to jump on this fine. They might have to do a little jump. But for someone as tall as me, I fit on it actually quite surprisingly well. I did see on social media, I posted a photo of me stood next to the bike and someone said, there's no way that guy's going to fit on the bike and be comfortable with it. But we were riding all day and I've come off with absolutely no aches and pains at all. The positioning of the pegs are a little bit racy in a way, sort of tucked behind you. So you've got a tiny bit of a forward lean on, but I don't know if that's just my height or just generally how the bike is set up. So stable and nice though to ride. The wheelbase is quite long, so especially when you're at high speeds, it's having a great time and it's just nice and stable. That does also remind me that there's a cross balancer system on the parallel twin. Again, I spoke about this in the V-Strom 800DE review. But it's so stable and smooth to ride, especially at low speeds. It's just really nice. High speeds, there can be a few vibrations, but there's a moving engine underneath you, so you'd expect that just naturally. Now, one thing I did find, the suspension up the front is upside down forks, and at the rear, there's an adjustable shock. Did find it a little bit firm, but it's nothing that was like throwing me out of the seat. It's just sometimes, especially for UK riders who are going to be riding this on our adventure roads, you could say, you might find that it sort of bounces around a little bit, and especially when the going gets a little bit tough, it might give you a little bit too much feedback mid-corner. It didn't do anything to really upset the ride, and you sort of get accustomed to riding it with that feedback, but it's something that you might want to consider, because the harder you ride it, the more feedback you might get. You can adjust the preload at the rear, and that's nice and easy enough to do, but you'd have to set it. You can't set it and do it on the fly because it's sort of tucked away and you need to mess around with some spanners and stuff like that, but absolutely fine. You've got 17-inch wheels front and rear, and I've got to say as well, in terms of style of the wheels, I really like the colouring on that. I'm not so keen on the colouring for the body panels. It just looks a little bit plasticky, but that's just my own preference. This also comes in a white with the blue subframe, and then it comes in a completely matte / glossy black, and I think that looks fantastic. There was one of the guys on this ride and he had the lucky opportunity to ride that, and it looked fantastic all day, I've got to say. A few of the more boring bits that people might want to know about, it's a 14-litre tank, and Suzuki have achieved this by moving the airbox and the electronic gadgetry for the engine sort of under the seat, so there's more room for the tank. And with that 14-litre tank, you're going to get around about 208 miles is what Suzuki say. They filled up halfway through, so we couldn't actually check how far into the 200 kilometers that we rode the tank was depleting, but we got about half of a tank by lunch, so that was around 100 kilometers, I'd say. Don't know if that's going to be on target, especially how hard we were pushing this bike sometimes, so, but I'd imagine it's around about that. The TFT screen up front is beautiful, and it's really nice and clear. It's optical bonding, so there's no gap between the screen and the sort of glass, so there's no opportunity for reflection and stuff like that. And at all times, it was nice and easy, visible, clear, and it flicks between day and night mode automatically. I will just chuck in a quick point on styling, because I did mention it quickly briefly, but I think overall the bike looks really nice, especially in person. In some photos, when I first saw it especially, and even at EICMA when it was unveiled, I was a bit like, not too sure, but after seeing it again in person, riding it all day, I've really started to enjoy the look of this bike. It's quite reminiscent of the GSX-8S 1000 and the sort of 950 that sort of followed that. And I really do enjoy the look, including the stacked headlight. One thing that I'm not too sure about is the rear of the bike. There's no brake light mounted to the actual bike itself. It's all in the tail, which extends really far. So as standard, if you're going to be looking to go for a tail tidy, you're going to have to start thinking about where you're going to put that brake light, which just means it's going to be a hassle. But it looks okay anyway. A few other bits as well. The Suzuki Intelligent Ride system includes traction control, which goes from off, 1, 2 and 3. You've also got ride modes A, B and C. A mode is really noticeably aggressive, while C is quite soft, and you can roll on the throttle and the power comes nice and smooth. Whereas with A, put the power on and it really starts to go for it. Great fun. And B mode sort of in between. So you could use B as an everyday mode. A is like when you're going on the twisties, and C is maybe you've had a long day and you just want to get home, or it's raining. Either one, really good stuff. I did already mention the quick shifter, and the quick shifter is really nice. The gearing, very, very, very smooth, and with the clutch, just makes it light work. And I will say, it's got ride-by-wire throttle, but there's no cruise control. If you want to start adding accessories on, you can go for like heated grips, luggage systems, you can go for a cowl at the front to deflect some wind. But overall, as standard for £8,000 or a quid off £8,000, very, very decent value for money. I know people are going to be looking at the Honda Hornet, which is about £1,000 cheaper, but it depends what you want from the bike. This has got a tiny bit less power, but it looks a bit nicer in my opinion. Start weighing these things up. Maybe it's just worth doing a head-to-head test and seeing what you find out, especially for Visordown. Might be something we do. Last few points as well to round it up from my ride notes as I was riding through the day. The brakes themselves, brilliant. You can really hammer on the power. It's got a span adjustable lever as well, so sort of fit it to yourself. Rear brake is really nice as well. And if you're going into a corner quite heavy and you open up some of the engine braking, parallel twin with the 270-degree crank does a lot of work for you. It's very nice. The tyres are Dunlops, and I think they're, I'm not too sure, chuck them on screen, but they felt very firm, and sometimes when the going got tough on the wet-ish roads when we set off, did feel a little bit of squirm, especially on sort of painted lines, and it got really squirmy, but not too bad. You can always change tyres yourself if you got really bothered by it as well. So just to round up the review of the Suzuki GSX-8S, got there in the end. It's a great bike, it's really accessible, really easy to ride, and really aggressive if you push it. And I really like the fact that Suzuki have allowed this motor to be placed in both the V-Strom off-road adventure bike as well as this naked Streetfighter bike, and got the best out of it. The motor really stands out, and that's something that I thought on the V-Strom launch as well. The bike itself for £8,000, to me, that's a really good price in today's market. It's a good positioning in terms of A2 and just above. It's a nice intermediate bike that you can really push on. And if you want to find out more about the bike, you're going to have to head over to Visordown.com to read my full coherence review rather than me rambling in front of a camera. But I've really enjoyed this bike, and it'll be very interesting to see how it does in the UK. It's going to be arriving at the end of April, so realistically, by the time this video is out, contact your Suzuki dealer, get yourself a test ride, you'll be away. So that just about rounds up the video. I will just say as well, this is my final one for Visordown, so it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the good comments and bad comments and everything in between. Really enjoyed my time here, and I'm sure you'll see me on your screen somewhere soon. But until then, ciao, take care, and I'll see you again.